Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here, your commentator, alongside me, TK, who is going to be rounding off the season with me.
Down the inside,
Absolutely impossible season.
This is for the win between these two.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
He needs to get it done now.
Blakey will dive to the inside.
We're robust, we've got our elbows out.
Ronard takes the lead.
Because here comes Alfie Butcher.
Can't really complain with that one.
It's not going to be easy. The pressure is on, of course.
Jarno Opmeer is your champion.
Welcome everyone, and a very good evening here to PSGL PCF4, where tonight it's time for round 7 around the streets of Singapore, the Marina Bay Street Circuit. I'll be your host for tonight. My name is Sky, and this time new in the commentary box, at least for PCF4, as Joseph. Joseph, what's up?
Oh, not too much. I'm doing very good. Looking forward to tonight. I've not been able to cover any PCF4 stuff so far this season. Or for the last couple of seasons, in fact. So it's good to be back.
Good to have you back on board indeed. And we've got some, things that kind of shaken up the standings, at least for the championship battle, because we've had a couple of drivers that have been promoted. I'll quickly take you through the standings, and that's why you will find that now Ryan Jacobs is our new championship leader. Here are the standings for you. You can see that Ryan is still third in the standings, but Oliver Knott, Rafael Kuntz, and Lawrence Patton have all been promoted to PCF3. They are currently racing, should be almost done with their race, leaving Ryan Jacobs in there. He was quite in there in the mix as well for the championship fights on 50 points, and he's now 26 points clear of number 2 in the standings, which is Bennett Hayter. Then third in the standings, Marius Ioano sadly can't make it tonight. He had to tap out last minute. And the rest in here we should still be seeing. But Joseph, that does mean that we've got quite the gap now in the championship. And I wonder if we're going to, Singapore has to deliver for us to at least make sure that F4 is going to be interesting all the way to the end.
You think so, of course, with only 4 rounds to go left in the season, of course, this being the 4th to last, it'll be very good indeed to see somebody like, as you say, Bennett Hayter try and bring himself into it. But with Ryan Jacobs, with that big gap, with only 16 points for a victory, it's going to be, I think, a little bit too difficult for somebody to find their way in. But hey, you never know. This is league racing, and anything can happen in league racing, as I believe we're about to go trackside in what looks to be a very interesting Singapore.
Yeah, let's boot us in a moment. Just to let you know, Ryan Jacobs been very consistent this season, scored in all races that he participated in. Worst place was in 8th position. He's got 3 podiums to his name, 3rd place last week out, and 2 second places to his name. So now we have 4 reserve drivers, coming in. Nano Moreira in the Mercedes, Axel in the Mercedes, Redmers in the Haas, and Simone Equestre in the Kick Sauber. But as you already said, Joseph, we should be moving over to our qualifying session, and it is pouring out here in Singapore.
It certainly is indeed. The drivers are going to have to compete this session with what looks to be the intermediate tyre conditions that we have on our hands. So it should be very, very good indeed to see what they're going to be able to do. 19 drivers here tonight racing around this circuit. Hopefully we'll get that one more in, but if not, then we've still got 19 very talented drivers out there ready to compete with each other. And it will be, is that going to be Franek Journey, the first one out on the track? No, it's going to be the other Haas driver. Redmers is the first one out on the circus. Alessandro Finn retires from the session.
Yeah, so 19 drivers indeed, one more than we were initially anticipating on, so that is great news. Yeah. What's interesting to note, though, is that F3 also had a wet qualifying session where most of the laps were done on the intermediates. I believe the pole lap time there was a 1:34.7. Let's see if our drivers can dive into the 34s or stay in the 35s throughout this session. But yeah, 19 drivers, so it's good to see such a stack crit. That's what we've seen mostly throughout this season here in F4. Always good to have that. And for now, we'll be keeping our eyes on Redmers, who's making his first appearance here in F4 as well.
It certainly is, and we should see what Redmers is going to be able to do here tonight. We get to learn a few more drivers, as of course we've had a few leave the series and a few make their way in. Redmers is one of 32 competitors that we're going to have across the course of this season. Axel, another one, the AMS driver, is currently reserving in the Mercedes car. Adrian Andrasov is another one who's just signed up to be in the tier, but he's not going to be racing here tonight. And well, Simone Equestre is making his first appearance in the series as well. The BRC driver at the top of the standings at the moment, of course, with no lap set at the moment, and he will be hoping that he'll be able to maintain that one as Redmers around the final corner, start a lap of the Singapore Grand Prix circuit, the Marina Bay Street circuit, as number 47 heads down to the first corner. He wants to take as wide a line as he possibly can, then run over the curbing on the inside, outside, and then once again on the inside of the corner. Turns 1, 2, and 3 are complete, then power down on the exit of the corner. This will be where main overtaking opportunities can be, down into turn number 5, and then through the first full DRS section on this lap. Of course, the other one being down the main straight itself, and I think we can count that as a full lap of or a full straight of DRS on the same lap, because it's not too long. Then Redmers in the first sector, 30.735, and just slipping and sliding his way through the second sector. This is a section formerly known as the Singapore Sling that he's just coming up to now, and he's going to keep trying to fly his way through, then putting the power down on the exit of the corner. And well, this is the section with the Sling. He just flies his way through it. We don't need any of those wide entries or exits anymore before you head up to the hairpin and to the end of this second sector. And so far, doesn't look too bad for Redmers as he just tries to get used to the intermediate conditions.
Yeah, it looks to be quite slippery out there. Really has to manage his braking points, especially here when your car is speeding up a bit more. But he's managing to hit the apex there quite nicely as he makes his way on the second straight. A little hesitation there on the throttle as he makes his way down to the end of the third sector. Now we're getting nowhere near the times that we were talking about earlier, the 135. So I think there the track might have been drying a little bit already, because I think Redmers will get into the low 40s, being 42, 43 even as a first lap time set. So there will be improvements coming from that end on, but a pretty decent run all the way through. Most of all, the most important thing here is just keep it out of the wall, keep it clean, and you might find yourself very much up there. Although DeMico already goes 2 seconds quicker with his run, so that just shows there are so many improvements to be made.
Certainly are, and DeMico finding 2 seconds on Redmers. What can Simone Equestre do in his first lap in PCF4? He's going to go up to second place. He's going to go up to the front row of the grid. So a good lap indeed from himself, and Victor Garcia slots himself in the middle of all the other drivers at the moment. He goes third place. Fastest of all from Bennett Hayder, the man who's hoping to light his championship up. He's going to go to the top of the standings at the moment with a 41.032. Kasper Jedrzejczyk is going to go into third at the moment. And, well, that's not too bad from himself, all things considered, of course. Ryan Jacobs, the one who's going to be hoping to compete with Hayder at the top, has just come out of the pit lane and will be starting. In fact, he's coming around the final corner to start his lap as Axel to the line. Tom Wolfgram goes up to second. And these are some pretty decent lap times thrown in. The 41 straight away is a good achievement.
Yeah, and just as you say that, Josh Rothwell's the first one breaking grounds here into the 1 minute 40s as Dennis Kaminsky comes out sliding in the final corner and sets himself up nicely in third place. But I think it's a good idea now to go to our championship leader, who was sadly already invalidated in that first sector. So he won't be setting a lap time, at least for now. Formula Kai, in the meantime, is just at the start of the third sector, trying to set his first lap time on the board. But so far, we're in between the 140s all the way down to 143. So quite some space there. But most of the drivers getting into the 41s, actually, except for 4, they're all well within there. But let's see, Formula Kai seems to be quite on there for a 42 perhaps. And he's going to come across the line. Indeed, a 42.2. That is spot 14 for him now. As Axel has retired from the session, I think he's just crashed out there because that's an unusual spot to retire.
Yeah, it certainly looks as though he's crashed out trying to find an onboard somewhere. And it looks as though he's just thrown himself off of the exit towards down the next straight. So towards the third DRS straight on the lap. What he's done is I think he's just potentially lost the rear or locked up and gone straight into the wall. So it's very unfortunate to see our first retirement of this qualifying session so early on after one decent lap from Axel to put himself into the top 10. I think he'll be knocked off by the time we head to the end of the session as the rain appears to be lightening. So I think towards the end of this session we're going to be getting dry laps. So for now it's just about getting a banker on the board just in case that doesn't happen. If it does, then it's going to be very, very spicy indeed for the last laps of this session. But for now it's just all about setting those bankers, setting those times on the board. And Franek's journey, fastest of all, 140.711.
Yeah, but this already shows the track is improving, the track is getting quicker, and at points when you're just looking, you can still see it's slightly drizzling and they come out. The track is still wet, but indeed, as you rightfully pointed out, Joseph, it seems to be getting a bit clearer compared to what it was a couple of minutes ago. So I think towards the end of the session, we might be in territory where some drivers can go on those soft compounds, but I won't be surprised if a couple of drivers stay in a little bit longer now, and instead of going for a second run, test the waters on the softs in about 3 to 4 minutes from now. So we'll keep an eye on that as we speak. Bennett Hayter is exiting pit lane. He is still on intermediates though, but he is going to go for a quick second run, just making sure that he's got some good lap times on the board. And if inevitably does get any better, then he can go for a soft run later on down the line, as Victor Garcia actually just goes quickest.
Yeah, he does. 2,000ths ahead of Franek's journey for that second place. So very good lap from Victor Garcia. Of course, at the moment, Garcia is looking to pick up what would be some more points added to his name, or the first points added to his name of the season currently. Does not hold... No, he does. He holds 6 points. I read that wrong. Victor Garcia holds 6 points at the moment. He wants to add more points to his name after a strong debut race last time out where he finished in the top 5. He's looking to do the same once again. In Vasizo, the first lap of the session to be in the tour. The 1 minute 39's a 39.696 from the Alpine. And there is certainly room for improvement out there for all of these drivers as, well, they're going to head around the final few corners. Takubi, fastest of all, 139.239. Nano Moreira has just put on some soft compound tyres. Keep an eye out for that. Tom Wolfgram has gone fastest of all, and Redbuzz around the final corner and up to the line he goes into third. So it's definitely drying up out there. It's definitely getting easier to race on there, and we will see those lap times come down and down and down as we come throughout the session. Demaika will be the next to the line. Is he going to be able to beat those 139s and maybe become the first driver into the 38s?
Just misses out on that, but a great final sector, improving 7/10ths all the way through there, and he's now in third position as we have a yellow flag in sector 2, but that is because one of the Red Bull drivers has halted a little bit. But indeed looks like the rain is starting to fully disappear, at least from my standpoint, as I'm on board with Demaiko. I don't see any rain falling down, as Nando Moreira is indeed the first one to try and gamble to go out on these soft compounds. But I think, Joseph, we are indeed hitting that crossover point. And for Ryan Jacobs, this is great news. He hasn't settled up on the board just yet. We've got 7.5 minutes left. But for quite a few drivers, there will be 2 soft runs on the cards now, and that might be their saving grace.
May well be. Just having a look at the conditions from my end, where I've got the telemetry set up so I can see exactly what the conditions are out on the circuit. And at the moment, it doesn't look as though it's going to fully clear up by the end of the session, but it should be a lot clearer. So you'll be seeing a lot of drivers go for gambled runs on softs, and Nando Moreira at the moment, the first driver to go out on one, and he will see what he can do in this lap. So keep an eye on the Portuguese driver, currently finding himself in 13th place. And I'm sure he'll be flying up the order later on if he's made indeed the right decision. At the moment, he's in 12th place in the championship. 3 points finishes at the start of the season. Then nothing for the second half of what we've had so far. So round 7, he'll hope for a change of fortunes, will Nando Moreira, as he's going to be the first one onto the set of the soft compound tyres. And I think we've come to the end of the interruns. And Tom Wolfgram, the quickest of all in those conditions. But as we get drier, it should be interesting to see who's taken the gamble to stay on the dry setups. Bennett Hayter to the line with a 1 minute 38.322. It's the driest conditions it's been so far, and you can see that by the fact that he's eked out 0.8 of a second on Wolfgram behind.
Yeah, you can already see we've been watching Nando Moreira for his warm-up lap, and you can see how much easier it's been for him to control that car. There's hardly any oversteer, understeer moments throughout where you would expect the track still to be wet. Of course, now that he is pushing, he will have some of those moments and has already invalidated into turn 1. So still a little bit slippery out there as he almost bends it into the wall there. But you can already see that it is at least good enough out there to try and go for soft runs. And more drivers are trying to do so, including both of the Racing Bulls who are on an out lap. Ryan Jacobs is one of them. He finds himself in Sector 1. His teammate, Tom97, is behind him. So it looks like the driver first in line to set a lap time will be our championship leader, Ryan Jacobs. But more and more drivers are now going to come out on those soft compounds. And I think this will indeed be the right call, and we'll see the time of Josh Rothwell be challenged in a couple of minutes from now.
I'm sure we will. Josh Rothwell went up to the top with a 1:38.0. Dennis Kamensky just behind, a couple of tenths off of the back of him at the very top of the field. And we've got 5 minutes left in the session, so probably enough time for one more soft run. Nana Moreira, as you say, invalidated on his push, and so he will not be setting a valid lap time this time around. And you can see he's still struggling a little bit with the grip, still trying to come to terms with the parts of the circuit that are wet and the parts of the circuit that are dry. But the fact that he has been the driver to take that gamble is going to come into his favour, because then he's got a decent idea of how the circuit is going to act. But then at the same time, on the flip side of that, he also knows how the circuit was and not how the circuit is going to be for too much longer. Into the pit lane for Moreira and Tom97, Ryan Jacobs and Takubi, as well as Formula Kai, all on out laps. And Ryan coming back into the box. I don't think it's time for softs. I think they gambled, and I don't think this is going to be a gamble that will pay off. I think they'll come back out on the intermediates for the final runs.
Yeah, it might be Tom97 is indeed coming back in as well. So it looks like drivers have done a reconnaissance lap on the softs, and the ones that have done the reconnaissance lap have decided to abort their runs. I wonder how many more drivers are going to do the same thing. Pretty much everyone is in pit lane right now, bar 3 drivers that are currently on an out lap on the softs. This includes Demaiko, who's just out there, but I want to go further down the line. Formula Kai is the furthest one on the track. I would expect some drivers to at least risk it and try to go for a soft run, but I'm guessing that this means that the track is not drying as quickly as the drivers and us ourselves as well we're hoping for, and that means we will indeed have to go for more intermediate runs, or some drivers are just trying to save their compounds a bit more. Formula Kai heavily steering that car on that main straight. Let's see what he is going to do. Is he going to go for a run, or is he's gonna dive it into pit lane as well? So it looks like the drivers have decided it's not time for the softs yet. It's just too wet out there.
Does just look like it might be too wet, but Demaiko and Invisazo out onto the circuit. Invisazo further along than Demaiko, so he's got to make that decision a lot quicker than Demaiko will have to. And we'll see where they both end up. One in the third sector, one in the second as it stands. And, well, it looks like the car is a bit more planted than it was earlier on in the session. So there is an opportunity, if they do want to take it, to probably set a pretty decent lap time on a set of the intermediates. But, of course, they might not want that gamble. They might just want to take the safe route and go into the pit lane. Is Invisazo going to go for it? It looks as though the Alpine driver is going to be the first one in this session to take a lap on the dry tyres, so it's going to be very interesting indeed to keep an eye on how that one will go. Demaiko as well, about to come around the final corner, about to see whether he is going to be backing out of it or whether he is going to be going full pelt towards it. But through the first few corners, Invisazo, where is he going to improve? A lot of the drivers as well now out on the set of the softs, so whilst it might not have been dry enough just then, they were readying the track for one final lap.
Yeah, it looks like they're going for an extra warm-up lap. At least the mic was invalidated, but he was already swerving a little bit on the straight, indicating that he might have gone for an extra warm-up lap too. Inversizo is doing the exact same thing. So far, one of the Red Bulls is leading the pack. That is going to be it is Victor Garcia indeed. But looks like the drivers, except for Tom Wolfgram and Jonas Orpel, are going for runs on the intermediates. The rest of the field will be going for runs on the soft set of compounds. So this will be very interesting to see which set of tires is the best to go out for your final quali run. There is no rain, at least as far as I can see, but the big question is, how wet is it still out there, and will that influence anything? Because it looks like, at least for now, the Ferrari of Jonas Orpel has the most overspeed, and he will be starting the lap first. So it looks like he's at least trying to keep the pace up, and he will be the first of our final runners here tonight. But Joseph, this is going to be a very exciting end to the qualifying session. We've seen some competitive lap times, but this is when the track is best, so realistically, any driver could take pole here.
Absolutely, any driver could be taking pole position from this point onwards. I think Tom Wolfgram and Jonas Orpel will not be, as the game has decided it is going to be dry enough for DRS to be enabled. That means that it is going to be dry enough for the dry compound of tyres. So I think Orpel and Wolfgram have missed a trick here, and we'll see as everybody heads onto their final lap, and they'll be led onto them by Orpel, I believe. So we'll see where he improves, and we'll compare that to where the Red Bull behind of, that will be, just trying to work out who that is, Victor Garcia, who was invalidated, will be going. So Garcia not going to improve on this final run, and this is where it comes down to the bottle. Jonas Orpel found 1.2 seconds in the first sector, Bennett Hayder 1.2 as well, so it looks like they might have just nailed it. It looks like it might in fact be the crossover period, but of course 2 more sectors to go, and we'll see of course what will happen.
Yeah, I've just been managing their sector 1 times, even though Victor Garcia invalidated already at the start of the first sector. He was half a second quicker than Jonas Orpel in that first sector alone. So it shows that the soft compounds is indeed the way to go. Formula Car is retired. Josh Rothrow was just too late to the line, so he can't set a lap time, sadly. Ryan Jacobs is on a do or die lap because he hasn't set a fast lap time just yet. So this is the lap that needs to count for him, as he is already making his way towards the end of sector 2. He's trying to fly behind one of those Ferraris, and I wonder if that Ferrari is going to hold him up at all here. Further on, I think it looks like there's a couple of drivers still on for a lap. We will see Jonas Orpel now come across the line, possibly send the fastest lap time. He does so indeed by quite a margin as well, 1:35.8 our pole lap time for now. More drivers are going to cross the line, but yeah, look at that. Bennett Hayder now fastest by 2.2 seconds. But here comes championship leader Ryan Jacobs. Can he pip that? Can he beat that? Is he quicker than Bennett Hayder? He is not! He misses out by 0.6 of a second as Takubi immediately jumps in for second place. Then, where are the other drivers? Simone Questor has invalidated. Denis Kamensky has invalidated. Then we still have Nando Morero who's invalidated. And Tom97 has also invalidated. So it looks like, Joseph, that's qualifying done.
Certainly does. I think they pushed too hard on that final lap, trying to make those tyres work. But in the end, they just weren't the optimal tyre to be on at the end. And it's very, very unfortunate indeed that we've seen quite a few of the drivers missing out, a lot of them invalidating on their final lap. So disappointment, I think, will be the opinion in the camp of a lot of the drivers, but it will be great for the likes of Bennett Hayder. We said he needed a good race to make his championship charge, and well, I think he's put himself in the best position to do so.
Yeah, I'm picking up that extra point as well for his pole position here tonight, so that is great. But if we look further down the line, it's so sad to see that Josh Rothwell just missed out in that final run as he took the checkered flag, starting what he was hoping was going to be his first fast run on the soft set of compounds. That would have put him a little bit higher than 10th place as he is now, because 9 drivers were able to go for a final run, were able to improve, of which are Inter runners have finished in 7th and 9th place. But as you can see on the screen, it is pole position for Bennett Hayder and the Williams. Joining him in the front row will be Takubi. Then followed Ryan Jacobs and Franek Yaziorni in row 2. It's Inver Cizo and Kasper Jadrzejczyk in P6, followed by Tom Wolfgram, Demaiko, Jonas Orpel and Josh Rothwell in P10. Then in 11th, Denis Kamensky, Simone Questor, Victor Garcia, Redmers, Formula Car in 15th, Nando Moreira, Axel, Tom97 and Alessandro Finn in P19 this qualifying session. Now we will be preparing for the race ever so shortly. You will see our track map on screen right now. So we are at the Marina Bay Street Circuit, 4.9 kilometers, 3 miles with 19 corners, 3 DRS zones. of course, famous for the slingshot chicane and the crash gate that happened here in 2008. The first race to be held at night, which we are going to see as well. But most importantly, it has a pit lane time loss of 27.2 seconds. So a very slow pit lane, the way that you enter it and also exit it. So decisions will have to be made here when it comes to strategy. As I saw in F3, it seems the most likely setup will be going for the mediums, starting on the mediums, and then right around lap 11 or 12, switch over to the hard set of compounds.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's a one-stop strategy here today in Singapore, and well, if they do anything different, then I would be surprised. A lot of the drivers, though, further down, might be considering switching onto the hard compound tyres and making the swap over straight away. Or straight after the strategy for the medium to hards. They'll be considering making their switch the other way around, and well, we will see whether they do make the decision to do that. But at the moment, it's a great position for Bennett Hayder to find himself. It's a great position for Takubi as well, both holding the front row of the grid. But all eyes will be on Ryan Jacobs. If he fluffs his lines today, the opportunity will still be rife for the likes of Bennett Hayder behind to really make his impression on the championship battle, a crucial race in the grand scheme of things. And we will have the lights very, very soon to get underway. 35 laps of racing here in Singapore. And, well, at the end of it, we will be crowning another victor of the race. We've only had... In fact, we'll be crowning a new victor of the race since the three that have left the tier of the three drivers that have been taking the victories so far this season. Kunch with 3, Not with 1, and Lawrence Patton with 2. That will take us up to the 6. We're now on round 7, and so we can have new competitors rising to the 4.
Yeah, that is also great to see, and doing so on a street circuit. A street circuit that's also counterclockwise, so that will, well, I don't think it will matter too much for the drivers here in their sim rigs, but it's something to consider as well, at least in the real world, when it comes to training your neck for races like this. But the main key here is to just keep it out of the wall, keep it nice and tight. There's plenty of overtaking opportunities with the DRS zones, even though it's just narrowed down to a couple, but with the addition of that extra straight, the track was changed a couple of years ago, that opens up some more overtaking opportunities. So we're going to see battles all the way down to the finish line potentially, as it's set to become a very, very interesting race here in F4. We have our championship leader starting in P3 and his nearest competitor departing from pole position.
He will be starting from the very front of this field, will Bennett Hayder, and so the opportunity will be rife for himself to take that championship charge, and well, he'll try to make it his own. He's going to have to work incredibly hard to fight his way to the very top of the field, but it's something that has been opened up for him. This is going to be a crucial race in the championship battle, so make sure you keep your eyes on this one for F4 round number 7 of 10. Of course, after this, we'll head to Belgium, we'll head to Abu Dhabi, and we'll head to Saudi Arabia to round off this season. So this is the 3rd to last Asian race, the 4th to last race in general. And, well, this is going to be the tightest race of them all just because of the nature of Singapore. Such a grueling circuit for the drivers. Of course, they're not going to be affected by the temperatures, but pretty much everything else is going to be affecting them as they head through. Pretty much everything else in comparison to real life will be affecting them as we will wait and see with bated breath. I personally think, and it might be biased because I want this to happen, I think that Bennett Hayder will be taking that victory and he'll be narrowing the gap to Jacobs at the top.
That would indeed be the best thing to see for the impartial viewer, that the championship fight stays close. But here we are with 2, 3, 4, and 5 red lights. And away we are for the Singapore Grand Prix with a great start on the inside for Takubi. Bennett Hayder's trying to hold them off. Will have to swoop around the outside and keeps that lead for now. A little bit of contact with Frank Yazorni and Ryan Jacobs as we see one of the Aston Martins diving to the inside. Now side by side with Inversizo fighting for P5 and having to bail out of that fight as well. So Inversizo staying ahead, at least for now. It looks like further down the line everything is coming through nicely, although some overtakes are trying to be made too, as Inversizo is trying to stick one up in the inside. El Franagis Yorni, but has to back out of that as well, as we see now dive down the inside from the Michael and Tom Wolfgram, but has to wait for the time being. Now, I quickly want to see positions change. 3 gained for Redmers, 2 for Nano Morera, 1 for Tom 97. Biggest loss going out to Victor Garcia, dropping from P13 to P15. And when it comes to tires, almost the entire grid on medium sets, except for George Rockwell in P10 and Nano Morera in P14.
Yeah, Nano Morera in 14th place, of course, going for the alternate strategy, just like he tried to in qualifying. He's going to try and do it this time in the race, but using and utilising the hard compound tyres instead of the softs, like he did in that qualifying session. It didn't quite pay out for him, which is why he ended up further down the order. Bennett Hayder has built up a big gap at the top of the field as well. It's going to be 6 to 7 tenths of a second between the top 2 at the moment. Ryan Jacobs just trying to cling on to the coattails of Takubi at the moment, not trying to make any moves further forward. Scraps at the back between the 2 creators, Tom 97 and Formula Kai side by side, and it will be Tom 97 who will take that 16th place off of him, and Alessandro Finn doing the same with Axel, taking 18th spot. Let's head on to the second lap of this race, and Alessandro Finn gaining another position on Formula Kai, up to 17th, the TRT man swapping with the other TRT man for those positions further down. But at the top of the field, Bennett Hayder managing to maintain that gap, but with the DRS activated and Takubi able to utilise it, I don't think it'll be for very much longer. He'll be able to hold that 8 tenths of a second.
Yeah, for now, the gaps are starting to stabilize at least a little bit, although all the drivers currently find themselves in that one and the same DRS train. We see that the gaps are a little bit closer towards the back of the grid. The gap between Josh Rothwell and Redmer has been only 3 tenths of a second. Nando Morera also not being too far away from Simone Questor, who we find in P13. So a couple of 3 tenths down on your competitors, but realistically, a mistake will have to be made on an exit before you can really go for a move just here and there, as we saw that Josh Rothwell had a little struggle coming out of the hairpin, as we see a little cheeky look down the inside from Redmers, but has to decide to wait at least a little bit longer. But we see that the drivers on the hards are struggling a little bit more, but so far holding their grounds nicely, with Nando Morera 2 places gained and Josh Rothwell being same place that he started in.
Yeah, they will struggle a little bit to start off with in the early stages of the race, I think. In the first 6 or 7 laps or so, they're going to be struggling. I didn't do that intentionally, but they're going to be struggling just that little bit more at the start of the session. Then they'll be able to work their way into this race, and then they'll be able to absolutely fly away. After the first sort of few laps where the medium tyres are the best tyres out there on the circuit, that's why nobody's gone out there on the mediums, because the tyre degradation is so high that those softs even would be absolutely pointless to use. But mediums, they're pretty good, and they'll be able to hold up for a decent amount of time, if not for the first 15 or so laps, which is what they're going to be hoping to stretch those tyres to. And we'll see where they end up stacking up in comparison to the other runners. But an interesting strategic battle developing, and this should be a very, very good race as far as tyres are concerned for Josh Rothwell and Nando Morera at the very least.
Yeah, and the key as well is here is to stay within that DRS train, and it looks like Simone Questor is starting to break that DRS train, as Alessandro Finn and Tom 97 are having a real tussle for P16, as almost side by side they go, but down the inside Tom 97 will defend that off nicely from Alessandro Finn and retake that position from him. But as you can see, Simone is now 1.2 seconds behind Denis Kamensky, who was ahead of him. But oh, that's a late send, way too late of a send from Alessandro Finn. Tom 97 has to take evasive action there, missing the chicane, but had he not done so, that would have ended in tires, as Denis Kamensky has retired from the race, and we have a safety car, so it seems. That is a punt in the wall in the final corner.
It looks as though, as you say, Denis Kamensky's crashed into the wall out of the final corner. Very disappointing then from himself to find himself out of the race after 4 laps. Tom 97, of course, getting that 10-second time penalty. Unfortunately, he's got it this early on in the race, because it means he won't be able to get it removed, even if it did look as though it wasn't his fault. But this will throw a curveball into the strategists' minds. Are they going to try and take the mediums, or take the hards even to the end? Are they going to make the switch? I think they're going to try and just use this opportunity to stretch the stint. And, well, I'm sure we'll be seeing 1 or 2 diving into the pit lane. But yeah, disappointment for Dennis Kamensky then, who started this qualifying session at the very least so well, but now finds himself losing positions down from 11th down to 19th and out of this race, meaning he's not going to pick up any points to add to his tally, and he may well fall outside the top 20 in the championship standings.
Yeah, hopefully we'll hear from him in a moment's notice in the Discord chat to find out whether there was some contact or if it was a driver error that put him in the wall there. As in the chat rightfully been pointed out, the drivers that started on the hards were of course not hoping for this safety car because this is not the ideal situation for them. On the other hand, I'm not entirely sure if the medium runners are going to come in this early too, because if you come in now, you surely have to make another pit stop. And do you go for softs here? That seems to be very overzealous, maybe for an extra set of mediums, but then again, you need to make another pit stop. So I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do. Let's go to the top of the field to Bennett Hayter, and it looks like what we have Takubi coming into pit lane, so at least one of the drivers is opting for an alternative strategy. But it looks like so far most drivers are staying out. Tom Wolfgram's come in. Nana Moreira is staying out. More drivers towards the back of the grid are now coming in, including Tom 97. Well, he of course needs to get that penalty removed, and that will only cost him one position, so it doesn't matter much for him. Takubi has gone to the hard, so he's at least going to try to have a long next stint. Josh Rothwell's gone on the medium, so he surely has to take another pit stop here. All the other drivers, of course, just going for the hards. Maybe that they can go for mediums later on down the line, because it seems, Joseph, that it's very, very tough to take these hards all the way down to the end on, let's say, 25 laps altogether.
Oh yeah, it'll be way too long. Way too long. But something interesting to note as well about Josh Rothwell. I saw him come into the pits and I questioned this, and I was absolutely right. He's one of those who started in the hard compound tyres, so that's why he came in for the mediums. I would be expecting him in once again on the next lap one more time and making the switch. If that is the strategy he so decides to go for, he'll be thinking about it right now, but he did make the switch from the hard to the mediums, so technically he has free reign to do whatever he wants in the final part of this stint. Only one of the drivers on that strategy. Of course, there was two of them. Only one of them, Nando Moreira, decided to stay out, so a split of strategies from those two means that they're going to have to go it alone throughout the rest of this race, and that can create a very, very interesting environment indeed, and it's where diamonds are formed a little bit more, because when you run by yourself, it's so very difficult to keep yourself motivated. It's so very difficult as well sometimes to keep yourself racing and just keep yourself going consistently quick with the rest of the field. So it's going to be a tough challenge for those two drivers to see what they're going to be able to do, as they're going to come around the final few corners now. And, well, I would not be surprised if Josh Rothwell dived into the pit lane once again.
Well, let's keep an eye then on Josh Rothwell to see how he's going to attack that. He swerved a little bit to the left, but he's decided to stay out for now, and it means that he will be resuming this race on a fresh set of mediums. Begs the question, of course, is he going to go for two stints on mediums now, or is he going to go for slightly earlier pit stop, perhaps along with the other medium runners, and then switch back to the hards, so that you'll have at least a fresh battle coming all the way to the end. But at least at the early stages now, after the safety car, he will have an advantage along with the drivers around him to try and go for some overtakes on the top 9 of the field, who have all decided to stay outside and continue on their starting sets. Now, if we look at our top 5, we find Bennett Hayter still leading the race. Ryan Jacobs has jumped one position because of that pit stop from Takubi. Then we find Frank Yaziorni in P3, and Versizo was also still well within championship contention in P4. And I'm followed in 5th place by Kasper Jędrzejczyk in the Aston Martin. I do expect, if we see, well, we do see Tom 97 being all the way down there. Let's see if he can catch up early enough so that we can resume at the start of lap 7. Otherwise, we might have to wait an extra lap because Tom seems to be just a little bit too far away for comfort.
Yes, he certainly does. He certainly does indeed, and I don't think he'll be able to catch up in the final sector. If he is, then the safety car goes a lot slower than I thought, and in fact, there's a few slower corners which they'll be coming up to now, which the safety car can take a little bit slower, but I do think we'll be going on to one more lap under the safety car before we get back to green flag racing. The 100% record and the 100% predicted record of the safety car coming out at Singapore looks set to resume. And, well, it has already resumed, but I don't think we'll be getting another safety car this race. So they've had to take full advantage of it now or never, I think, is the difference for these drivers. And that can play on their mind when they are making the decision of the strategy under the safety car. They know that it's most likely not going to happen again. So it's whether they try to take advantage of it or whether they can see that taking advantage of it can actually harm your race in the long run. Because, of course, we've seen Joe Rothwell into the box, and I don't personally think that was the right strategy for the team to make the switch onto the mediums once again. I think if he was going to do anything, he would have switched onto a new set of hards if he had a new set of hards, but if he didn't, I guess the mediums are fine. He can try and match the strategy with all the drivers ahead, and well, hopefully those hard runners even are going to have to go for one more pit stop.
Yeah, we're going to find out more about that. In the meantime, Tom has caught up with the rest of the field. It looks like he went for a slightly slower lap in lap 6 and is now pushing just a little bit more so he can catch up with the pack so that we will be resumed to racing at the start of lap 8. As we already mentioned, Bennett Hayter is our race leader. He's picked up that extra point in qualifying session for getting pole position, which means he's now on 25 points. Also 25 points exactly behind championship leader, who's just behind him on track. That is Ryan Jacobs. Of course, he'll be the main driver to beat this season, after 3 other drivers that were in the championship fight with him have been promoted to F3. But seeing Ryan's consistency throughout this season so far, it will be very, very hard to compete with him. But if you want to make a start with that, and the driver that is at least best suited to make a start like that is currently ahead of him in the name of Bennett Hayter. But we are currently preparing for the resumption of the race. Bennett Hayter, let's go on board with him, warming up his tires now, but I do expect just before the chicane he is going to jump, and that's when we go green again.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And, well, we will be seeing where Bennett Hayter decides to try and put the foot down. You say after the chicane, well, we'll just have to wait and see as the safety car peels off into the pit lane. Bernd Mailander has had enough of these drivers. He's decided to let loose on the circuit, let these drivers loose on the circuit as they go for the next, what will end up being 23 laps of racing to go. I don't think we'll be getting another safety car, I really don't, because I think they are just going to be confident enough to keep it out of the pits. As, well, Bennett Hayter goes to green flag racing, he takes us onto it, and Ryan Jacobs is going to pick it, but not well enough to stay alongside. Someone who hasn't picked it is Inversizo, so he might be under pressure from Kasper Zedrzejczyk, but can't quite make the move. Can the Aston Martin at the moment? So Hayter holds on to the lead. He's basically had this safety car restart he would have wanted.
Yeah, he's done it exactly as he would have liked. In the meantime, Josh Rothwell's already caught up a place with Tom Wolfgram, and he's now contesting Takubi, the other driver that went for a pit stop. But of course, he is on a fresh set of hards. Josh is on a fresh set of mediums, and he will be looking to claw away of as many positions as he potentially can, because look at the overspeed that he has. He wants to go for moves, but he knows as well he can't be too risky with that, and he can't be too greedy as he decides to keep a healthy distance, at least through this tricky part of the second sector. Now keep it tight under the bridge, make sure that you wait a little bit here, don't go for a full send into the hairpin, make sure that you get a great exit, and then down in this backstretch you might be able to contest Takubi or wait just another straight before putting it side by side into the hairpin.
Yeah, side by side into the hairpin is what they're going to hope to go, and well, that'll be a risk if they do go for that side by side moment. Josh Rothwell in the meantime trying to make the most of his medium compound tyres, trying to get through on Takubi, can't quite do so, stays in behind, and will hope to find his way through on the exit. As DRS enabled on lap number 8 of this race, everybody was still within it. Tom 97 almost dropping off the pack, but he will hold on to it in the end. And, well, lap number 9 is what we're going to tick over to now. And Hayder is going to come under pressure, I think. Here's the first bit of pressure from Ryan Jacobs in this session.
Yeah, let's move over to Ryan Jacobs, who is about half a second down, but of course now starting with DRS zones as DRS has been re-enabled. As we can see, into the braking zone at the end of Sector 1. He gets close, but not close enough to go for an overtake, as on the other end, Takubi and Formula Kai are getting quite close to one another. Takubi's trying to drive different lines to try and go side by side with the McLaren man. He's also close to the back of that McLaren, but where can you make a move here? Because realistically, there's not a place you can push an overtake here in that second sector. You can go for a risky send down the inside at the hairpin, otherwise you have to wait just a little bit longer, and it looks like Josh behind is setting himself up nicely to try and go for another attempt where he failed to do so in the previous lap.
Failed to do so, and he may well go for it once again. We shall see. What he's going to do is he tries to make the most of his medium compound tyres. Ryan Jacobs in that second place going to try and get as close as he can to Bennett Hayder. He's going to be about 3/10 off the back of the Williams at this point in time, but he can't quite make his way through. Still, no opportunities for himself as he heads to the line once again, as DRS is split for the first time in this race in for Cizo. Down the main straight, will not have it on Franek Journey. That could be absolutely vital.
Yeah, and that seems to be an awful bit of timing for Inversizo, as he's now about a second down. He has to cut down that gap to less than a second before the next DRS straight. It looks like he's just stayed above it, so he won't get any DRS down this middle sector, and that opens up the door for Kasper Jędrzejczyk. Down the inside he goes, and Inversizo's lost his P4, but now for Kasper, he's got to claw back 4/10 in this middle sector, meaning that he has to use a lot of that battery that he had saved up previously just to make sure that he stays within the DRS train so he doesn't get overtaken right away by the drivers behind. Further down the line, positions remain unchanged. It could be still in P10 ahead of Josh Rothwell, and they seem to be stuck behind Formula Kai, at least for the time being.
Yeah, appears to be stuck behind. Hopes to want to make his way through some point soon on the driver in the top 10. Of course, Josh Rothwell stuck behind Takubi and Formula Car at the moment with those medium tyres. They're now 5 laps old, so we're starting to get to the end of their operating window versus the hard compound tyres of the drivers that came in on the same time as this stint. So I'd say that Josh Rothwell's strategy hasn't paid off for him, and he's going to try and go throughout the rest of this race on the offset of the strategy. When you get a strategy wrong, it just feels as though it can be very inflating. You've just got to wake yourself up once again. As Alessandro Finn, what has happened to the Alpine? Is he into the pit lane? Yes, he is. He's done 9 laps on the mediums. He's going to go for a big undercut.
That is a massive undercut indeed. I thought for a moment it was his teammate Inversizo, but it looks like it was his teammate just a little bit further down the line who's indeed opted for the hards and going for a very aggressive undercut. We've seen one of the drivers in F3 try this as well, and he managed to get ahead, at least momentarily, of the race leader at that point, who stopped about 4 laps later. So I think we can expect the main drivers to come in a couple laps time too, as Kasper Jędrzejczyk has fully fallen out of contentions, now 1.6 seconds down, and Franek Journey is also starting to lose sight of Ryan Jacobs up ahead, who's now down 7/10, but that was of course a little bit more a moment ago. But I wonder if there's any damage to the car of Kasper, as he's not trying to push it at all throughout this middle sector, but I think he's just trying to keep it clean for now, because he knows that he doesn't want to make any crucial mistakes further down. It looks like his front wing is indeed fully intact, so nothing to worry about that now. On the other hand, Jonas Orpo in P13 was almost fallen out of the DRS contention, but he's now gone well back within that reach. As I'm also looking at Nando Moreira, of course, one of our runners who started on the hards. He was also the only hard runner to opt staying out during that safety car session, and he's now starting to get a little bit closer to the medium runners up ahead. First one on his list, DeMico in the Williams.
DeMico in the Williams indeed in 6th place, and he's going to try and include him on his hit list. He's going to be the next one up as Kasper Jędrzejczyk has not been able to make his way into the DRS as he would have been hoping to when he made his way past Indeciso. The gap between them is 1.7 seconds. The chances are dwindling for those drivers to be right up at the top of the field. Financial Journey might have lost DRS as well as Ryan Jacobs had a look at Bennett Hayder. I don't think he was able to make his way through at all, though. He didn't even make his way alongside, and he had to back out of it. So unfortunate for Ryan Jacobs as he drops back down and stays in behind Hayder. Financial Journey gets a lifeline and jumps back into the
Yeah, we're starting to see the drivers that have gone for the pits, and also Nando Morero, who's on the hards, gaining a little bit more overspeed on their nearest competitors, as in comparison to before. Sakubi gets a great run out of the hairpin there as he's trying to get closer to Formula Kai up ahead, but the gap's still almost 4 tenths as he makes his way down the right-hander. So I think he's just too far away for him to at least make a move. And as we see further up ahead, Kasper Jacek has almost gone back within the DRS train. He's now 1.0 down as we see a Williams dart into pit lane. That is DeMico going for the first pit stop for him, and the only pit stop as well. So I want to see in comparison to Alessandro Finn where he's going to come out on, because they were quite close to one another on the track. Alessandro Finn's now making his way down the start-finish straight. Just 2 more corners left to go before he is there. DeMico is starting to exit pit lane already. This is actually going to be very, very tight, and it looks like Alessandro Finn has gone ahead of DeMico, so that undercut has worked wonders for him. And this is what we saw in F3 as well. That undercut is very powerful, but we saw there too, it took only a few laps for the other drivers to crawl back and retake that track position.
Yeah, it didn't take them long at all to try to retake that position, and indeed do so as well they'll head through, continuing on as Kasper Jedrzejczyk almost back into the DRS of the drivers up the top. Tom Wolfgren trying to stay with the top 10 and trying to stay with Josh Rothwell, who's kept those medium tyres in a pretty decent shape and will continue to keep those tyres in as decent shape as he possibly can at this point in time. Everybody's still within the DRS apart from, of course, the 2 that came into the pit lane and Kasper Jedrzejczyk, and I think they're going to try and stay in the fight as long as they can. I think they're going to try and match each other on strategy because of how crucial DRS is here. I mean, there's 4 DRS zones, so they're going to really have to give it a real go to try and remain in contention at this point in time. Anybody else into the pit lane on this lap? There is going to be a couple. Indeciso 1, Financial Journey in as well, and well, it should be very interesting. Those 2 can now work together as a team.
Yeah, so they have now gone into pit lane. Frank Giorni, of course, switching over to the hards, just as in Verciso, as all the other drivers will do so. But in comparison to Alessandro Finn, where they're going to come out, Alessandro Finn is now on that main straight. Drivers are now about to exit pit lane, and we're going to see a similar situation as we had just moments ago. But where does DeMico come out? DeMico gets ahead of Frank Giorni as well. Frank was in P3. DeMico is now ahead of him, and this means that the race leaders in the name of Bennett Hayder and later perhaps Ryan Jacobs will be coming out around that same area as where we find DeMico now. So that undercut's been very powerful, but how much more powerful is it going to be as the front runners are yet to make their pit stops?
Yeah, the front runners yet to make their pit stops. They will take a lot of time out of these laps, and I think they'll need to come in within the next lap or 2, or they'll start to reach towards puncture region, which is exactly not what they are going to want at this point in time. They're going to try and avoid a puncture, of course they will, and into the pit lane. They are going to come on this lap, you would imagine. If not next, Bennett Hayder will be in, so will Ryan Jacobs, Kasper Jedrzejczyk in as well, and Formula Kai will duck in as well. So all 4 of those who started on the medium compounded tyres are going to be switching onto the hard compound of tyre, and well, we'll see what they can do with their one and only pit stop of the race, as Josh Rothwell in as well.
Josh Rothwell in too, but is he going to go for mediums or is he going to go for hards? I think he's got to go and play safe and go for hards indeed. Here comes Alessandro Finn. Will he take over that race lead momentarily, or is he going to find himself just behind Bennett Hayder? Where is Bennett? Where is Bennett? He is behind. DeMico has also gone ahead of his teammate. As we see the drivers now struggling to stay ahead, and Bennett Hayter is under a lot of pressure from Franek Yaziorni. Can he go for the overtake? He knows that he needs to do it now if he wants to make it work. He's got one in the name of Ryan Jacobs, but has to stay behind previous race leader Bennett Hayter. Now Alessandro Finn leads the pack ahead of DeMico, and in third place we now find Bennett Hayter.
Yeah, Bennett Hayter currently finding himself in that third place in that group, and that's not where he would have wanted to be, but with the DRS on DeMico, with the DRS on Alessandro Finn, with the better tyres than the two, he'll be hoping to make his way through, and he'll be hoping that his teammate as well can do him a side, of course. Nobody really pays attention to those team standings anymore, but DeMico and Bennett Hayter, technically both Williams cars, will be hopefully, in the case of Bennett Hayter, working together just that little bit, but he stays behind for the time being. Nano Moreira has now gone the longest on those tyres that he's got, and I think he's only going to get a few more laps out of them before he has to dive in, or only one more before Takubi has a fight with him.
Yeah, but this is also the risk for him. If he stops now and goes for the mediums, that means he's got to do 16 laps on mediums. So he has to stay out for a few more laps, and that means risking, well, not just risking, most likely getting overtaken by the drivers behind. But we're going to move over to Alessandro Finn, who is going to come under heaps of pressure from the drivers just behind. They're all on fresher tires. For DeMico, it's just a 2-lap offset, but if Bennett Hayter gets ahead of his teammate, that will be a 4-lap offset, and that will most likely be too much for Alessandro Finn to defend from. But here comes DeMico. He's getting that overspeed. Heavy defending down the inside, and he's off! DeMico is off, and it might have been some blocking from Alessandro Finn. A late move to the inside, and DeMico into the wall.
Yeah, DeMico into the wall indeed. That was a very hairy moment, and somehow managing to keep himself, I think he's managed to keep himself relatively clean out of that one. Just having a look to see if he's got any damage on that car, and in fact no, he does. I'm completely lying. He's got damage as DeMico, and so he's going to be really struggling on this lap, which is going to hold up Kasper Jedrzejczyk at the moment, who sits right in behind and is going to send it to the inside line of the hairpin on the exit. It's unsurprising that it will be Jedrzejczyk who will make his way through, but with a straight line speed, DeMico will keep himself alongside, but with the DRS, Jedrzejczyk is going to make his way through as well as Alessandro Finn goes wide. Franek Yaziorni finds his way through. Ryan Jacobs tries to find his way through as well. He looks to the outside. Will be switching to the inside for the next braking zone, but no, he can't quite find his way through just yet. The championship leader tried to pounce on Alessandro Finn's mistake, couldn't quite do so. Is he going to be able to do so as they cross the line and head on towards the next lap? Not quite, as the Alpine will stay ahead and try and protect his blushes.
Yeah, and because all that chaos that ensued on the previous lap, Bennett Hayter has managed to get a nice cushion of 1.5 seconds onto Franek Yaziorni, and with Alessandro Finn now holding off Ryan Jacobs for the time being, that opens up another buffer for him and another potential points gained if results stay as they are, and if track positions, of course, too, stay as they are. But for now, as Alessandro Finn is able to follow Franek quite nicely, he will be able to at least keep Ryan behind for the time being. As further up ahead, Franek is now 1.8 seconds behind Bennett Hayter. Bennett playing this absolutely well, playing his cards right, and being in the provisional race lead, as all the other drivers up ahead will make another pit stop later on down the line, but they will be going for the mediums and hoping to go for some quite longer runs and faster runs as well. But here then, once more on board with Ryan Jacobs, needs to get a good exit here out of that right-hander and try and send it to the inside of the chicane. He's using the energy that he can use. He can use a lot. He's down the inside. He goes a little bit wide into the chicane, but he is ahead of Alessandro Finn. He had to overtake him as soon as he could, and he is now ahead and finds himself provisionally in P3.
Yeah, provisionally in P3 indeed, and that is going to be exactly what you would have wanted to see, trying to cut down the gap to Bennett Hayter as much as he possibly can, because of course the championship will still be a little bit on the V-Carb's mind, as well, the other V-Carb swaps with Simone Equestre for 8th place on the road, which is just the position ahead of Bennett Hayder. 9.7 the gap between the two, so I'd imagine they're going to be making their way into the fight as soon as they possibly can, especially if they gain as much as Bennett Hayder has in the last couple of corners. 0.4 of a second gain in sector 2 from the Williams so far, and they're not even near to the end of it. Redmer's trying to challenge for the podium at the moment, as well as I'd imagine Nando Moreira starting to think about a pit stop.
Yeah, he should be going into pit lane in a moment's notice. He's kept off Takubi quite nicely. As we see now, Alessandro Finn is starting to struggle more and more. He's now down over a second onto Ryan Jacobs. But I wonder why he didn't let his teammate through, because this was the inevitable that was just waiting to happen. And now you're cutting your teammate short of a potential podium fight, because Ryan Jacobs finds himself in a provisional P3. As behind, we see a late send down the inside from Kasper Jędrzejczyk, pushing in for Cizo wide. He is ahead, but that move was not as clean as it could have been. And down the inside, Cizo has a little look, but has to stay behind for now. So it took too long for Inver to overtake his teammate Alessandro Finn. And Kasper Jędrzejczyk has made his move instead, and now finds himself ahead.
Yeah, finds himself ahead indeed. And, well, there's going to be moves all up and down the field as they get a bit more frantic later on into the race. Just the 12 laps to go, and well, we will see who's going to be coming out on the top right at the end. Michael, of course, with the purple sector, but he can't quite make his way back into the fight. I would imagine in this race he just finds himself off after that front wing change and to bring himself back into it. But I don't think there's going to be enough luck in this race left for himself to find his way up the order. If only Kamensky could have crashed later on, then it would have given him more of an opportunity. Edrusek through on Alessandro Finn, and Inver Cizo looking racy against his teammate. Huge send from Formula Kai in the meantime, just to try and go for the move on the Alpine driver, but he can't quite find his way through. Then down to the next braking zone, he backs out early. So Formula Kai looking very racy, as is Inver Cizo for these lower points positions.
Yeah, and Cizo went for a late send onto Alessandro Finn that seemed near impossible, as now Formula Kai has gone for another send, but I think he's clipped the inside wall of the hairpin. That's now cost him quite a bit of time on track. But yeah, Inver Cizo and Kai fighting so hard that they can't get past Alessandro Finn for the time being, even though that should be their first target, so they can fight for some good points later on down the line. Further up ahead, Bennett Hayder is only 3.7 seconds behind the hard runners that surely will be coming in a few laps' time, but looks like they're still staying out, at least for now. But yeah, when they come in the next lap, Joseph, it will be only 10 laps that they need to do on the mediums, and that seems to be right around an ideal time that you can do in the medium. So I think most of our drivers will be coming in at the end of this lap or the next one.
Yeah, you would imagine so. Then they're going to be doing 11 laps on the set of the medium compounder tyres, which is going to be more than enough to take to the end of the race. Some might even gamble onto the set of the softs, but knowing how useless the softs are around most circuits on this game, you would imagine they're going to try and avoid that one, as well as a huge send from Inver Cizo. Sends himself off of the circuit. Alessandro Finn continues to remain alongside as Cizo tries to keep himself in the thick of this fight. He's on the outside line into the next corner. Finn looks to the inside, but Inver Cizo, with the grip, with the fresher tyres, is able to make his way past his teammate. Alessandro Finn has a look to the inside, but no doing for himself. So the move made finally between the two teammates. They're having a good scrap out there, and well, Formula Kai trying to get himself involved once again.
Yeah, but this is exactly the thing that we were saying. Alessandro Finn's held off Inver Cizo way too long there. So instead of him being ahead of Kasper Jędrzejczyk and getting close to Ryan Jacobs for a potential P3, he now finds himself 3.5 seconds down on Kasper Jędrzejczyk, who instead also is 1.4 behind on Ryan Jacobs. In the meantime, Nando Moreira has come into pit lane. He couldn't hold out much longer on those hearts, so he will be rejoining the fight, I think, behind Josh Rothwell, although I can't imagine it will be too far down. It will be a good 7 to 8 seconds, I believe, but not a gap that is impossible to overcome. And I think for the other drivers that are yet to make their pit stops, who can drive just a little bit quicker, go for a final quick out lap, they will be able to do quite something with that as well. In the meantime, our provisional race leader has caught up with the pack. He's now just behind Simone Quester. And this is a key moment of the race, because Bennett has to clear him as soon as he can, The gap to Franek is still 4 seconds, so that is great news. But stay behind Simone too long, and that gap is going to become dwindling down. But I think he wants to have a cheeky move down the inside. He already has to wait a little bit. The hairpin gets a much better run now. Round the outside he tries to go, and he will be ahead before moving over to the right in the next corner.
Yeah, he's just going to try and seal the position, and indeed it is sealed. Bennett Hayder through on Simone Equestre, and he's going to be in 8th place at the moment. 3 seconds between Equestre and Cijerni now, so it's a big buffer for the Williams to have. And Bennett Hayder now looking to chase behind on Tom 97, as well, the 2 TRT drivers, Finn and Formula Kai, are going to be fighting once again. But Bennett Hayder, 2.4 seconds is the gap between himself and Tom 97. That's coming down at a rate of knots. Franek Cijerni as well, really pushing on the back of Simone Equestre. So the 2 fastest drivers at the moment on the circuit are maybe not necessarily the fastest drivers in terms of the lap times, but they are certainly taking the conditions they have found themselves in and absolutely flying as much as they can to maximise this race.
Yeah, with Formula Kai now ahead of Alessandro Finn, that means that next in line to try go for an overtake is Josh Rothwell. 2 tenths now behind the Alpine driver, but is he going to try to go for a late move down the inside? Has to make a look now. He's going to go for a late send indeed. Gets minimum amount of space. They keep each other alive as they go side by side into the next corner again. There's a little bit of tapping as they go, but round the outside, Josh Rothwell is now ahead of Alessandro Finn, and he needs to push a bit more because look at there behind. We just saw him come into screen. Nando Moreira only 3 seconds down on this fighting pack up ahead, and that means that the medium runners, well, the soon-to-be medium runners out of the top 7 that still has to pit, they will be catching up with this pack later on down the line, and Inversizo is going to have a tough fight with that. He's now 5 seconds down on Kasper Jędrzejczyk. Kasper, who's caught up with Franek and Ryan Jacobs, and are well within a fight for P2.
Yeah, very much in the fight as Axel into the pit lane, the first of the leading pack to come in. So that means there's 6 drivers left, and one of them is Tom 97, right ahead of Bennett Hayder, who needs to make this move nice and quickly. He made it nice and cleanly and quickly on the car behind Simone Equestre, and now needs to do it all over again as he keeps in the fight for these top positions. Ryan Jacobs on the back of Simone Equestre as we speak, and well, he'll try and maximise the DRS to get through on the kick-sal, but at the moment just 2 tenths off the back as he heads down towards turn number 6, and he's going to get the move done. Ryan Jacobs through, and Franek Cijerni through as well, so the pressure's going to continue on the VCARB, and this might benefit him because it means that he can have a good marker as Franek Cijerni and Simone Equestre make contact. Equestre tried to send it back down the inside where there wasn't really room, and Cijerni's been sent off the circuit.
Yeah, and that is not something that you want to see. Simone still has to make a pit stop, and Franek, who's fighting for a potential podium here, is being sent off. Quite an unfortunate moment. That means the gap with Ryan is now almost too much overcome. Is sent down the inside the hairpin. A little bit of contact made there as well, but I think this is Franek's way of saying what you can do, I can do as well, and I am now ahead of you. And in the meantime, Kasper Jędrzejczyk has managed to make that move stick as well. Goes a little bit late into turn 14, but looks to be staying ahead of Simone too. And I wonder when these drivers are going to come in, because if I look further up the field, our hard runners are still not coming in. And I'm starting to wonder, Joseph, are they going to come in at all? Because they've made their pit stops very early on in the race. Can they go all the way to the end?
Earlier on, it was going to be a distinct possibility that they were going to do that. It was going to be a very difficult one, but it is a distinct possibility that they can do it, and I think they are going to try and give it a go. You know, why not, with only a few laps left to go in this race, and Bennett Hayder chasing down as well, Nando Moreira is the only driver really with true overarching pace over the rest of the field as he makes his way through on Josh Rothwell for 14th place. Of course, that's because he's on the set of the medium tyres. Everybody else is on a set of wearing hards. As D'Amico becomes a second retirement of the race, he's decided to give it up on lap 24 and came into the pit lane and called his race to a close. Very unfortunate there for somebody who seemed to have pretty decent pace throughout the course of this race. But yeah, we can see the drivers, I think, try and stick it out. Bennett Hayder, though, into the DRS and into the thick of this fight at the top, so he could have a massive influence.
Yeah, he has 10 lap fresher hards compared to the drivers around him. And I think that the way the race has been going, I think they want to stay out, perhaps risk a puncture. But with the way that the fights have been progressing further on down the line, they might not have to worry too much about the drivers behind. And that means they could well be within podium reach here tonight if they can keep it clean and if they can keep their tires alive for the remainder of the race. Keeping Bennett Hayter behind might be too tough of an order, but keeping the others behind seems well within reach.
It certainly does, because the gap between Tom 97 at the back of this pack and Ryan Jacobs at the front of the next pack is currently 1.9. Of course, Tom 97 outside of the DRS, so that gap will come down between the two and up between Tom 97 and Bennett Hayter at the moment. And so it will be the top 5 in that group who are going to be really fighting for those top positions. Bennett Hayter still looking for the move. Can he find the opportunity through on Victor Garcia to any point? Can't quite do so. Will remain in behind for the time being. And I think we're done with pit stops for this race, unless some of them really get too close to puncture territory. And then they will sheepishly make their way into the pit lane. But it's a gamble worth making. And at the moment, it's a gamble that appears to be paying off. With the circuit being so tight, the Bennett Hayter can't seem to find his way through.
Yeah, this is the tough thing, because everyone is in a DRS train. Bennett Hayter can't really overtake in your conventional overtaking spots with overspeed and DRS. He has to go for one of those lesser known areas to overtake, much tougher areas to overtake, make a surprise send down the inside and catch your drivers off one by one. That way, as we see a dive down the inside from Victor Garcia onto Jonas Orpel. That was a big moment, and that opens up the door for Bennett Hayter as well, because surely Victor will be held off now. He's got so much less speed coming down the main straight. Can there be a move for Bennett Hayter? No, he has to stay behind for now. But look at that behind. Tom 97, 1.2 down. Then 8 down is Ryan Jacobs. So he's starting to get back on everyone as well. But how many points can Bennett Hayter outscore his main championship competitor? His first task is just ahead of him. Can he now get the send on Victor Garcia? You would surely hope that he can get past, but he doesn't have enough ERS to do so. And behind him, Ryan Jacobs is now the man behind and is only 1.2 seconds. So the gap that he had, the 4 seconds he had, is now gone. And Bennett Hayter seems to be stuck in P6.
Yeah, he certainly does. Bennett Hayter stuck in position. He knows Victor Garcia is going to fight him very hard for this position. He knows at this point that it's going to be all for track position. He's not just going to let him go, and he's just going to have to keep fighting his way through the order and keep remaining resilient at this point in the race. That is all what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to the attitude and the opportunities that he's going to be able to take. 0.6 of a second between Garcia and Orpel, but Bennett Hayter not quite able to get close enough, but almost pushing the Red Bull even through the corners. You can see the differences between the Red Bull and the Williams at the moment, and I'm sure we'll be seeing the differences in terms of the overtaking opportunities very soon. But the time is running out now, and he doesn't appear to be able to make his way through. And yeah, the time's running out, the opportunities are running out. And is this going to be it in terms of making the moves for Bennett Hayter? Because Victor Garcia, his toughest opponent yet.
Yeah, and then the man that we saw stop so early from pretty much front row seat, and Takubi started this race in P2, went for a very early pit stop with that safety car session, and where we thought this wouldn't really put him into contention for all too many points, he is now leading the race, 5 laps to go, and it looks like his best competitor in the likes of Bennett Hayter is stuck behind a man in P5. But it looks like he's starting to get some more overspeed. Ryan Jacobs has caught up with him. This surely must be the lap where he gets ahead of Garcia, and then he can try to get the drivers one at a time, because as soon as he gets past Tom Wolfgram, Takubi will be a sitting duck because he won't have DRS. But all the other drivers with DRS in hand will be just that extra more difficult to overtake. But he needs to start with it, and he needs to start with it right now. Victor Garcia just ahead of him. Ryan Jacobs is starting to get within his crosshairs too. But can Bennett Hayter make the move now? Get a good exit out of 14, but the gap's already too big. He's using his ERS to try and stay close, and he has to use it to at least stay ahead of Ryan Jacobs, who's starting to get within 2/10 as well. So where we thought he might be getting closer to Garcia up ahead, he instead is defending more behind from Ryan.
Yes, he certainly is. He's having to defend from the championship challenger at the moment, and it will be the defence of the inside for Bennett Hayter, who manages to hold on to the position. Then on the exit of the corner, he's just doing enough to remain ahead, but I think this is going to give Hayter the little bit of the boost that he needs, because he realises that this is so very important, and so he can take his opportunity to try and claim that position from Victor Garcia. He might also catch the AMR driver napping, and at the moment it's just about sitting in position. I think now he might even be starting to think about defence. It'd be a great shame after the pace he showed earlier on, but he doesn't want to lose any more positions to any drivers further down, including Ryan Jacobs, crucially, as Josh Rothwell in for intermediate. Not sure why he's done that. It is going to rain later on in this day, but it's going to rain after the checkered flag has waved, way after the checkered flag has waved. So very interesting decision there indeed. And well, in fact, my radar could be wrong. Will we be getting rain later on in the race? I don't think so, because I've not been wrong before with that. I've been
There's rain.
Strategies though today, and well, that
I think there was a little bit of rain.
There does appear to be a little bit of rain, but that doesn't look like enough to be taking that switch over to the inters. And the pace of Josh Rothwell would suggest that maybe it might now be time. So I might be completely wrong. My radar might be completely off, and it might be the chance for the drivers to come into the pit lane, as Rothwell at least is faster than Finn.
But are they going to? It seems to be very tough to make this call with just a couple of laps to go. Josh Rothwell has done so. He seems to be pretty much still on pace with all the other drivers. Takubi gets a 3-second time penalty for track limits. Our race leader's gotten the 3-second time penalty, and that puts him out of contention. Formula Kai's picked up a 3-second time penalty as well. The rain is surely coming into play, and with 3 laps to go, this race has just been turned upside down. So instead of Takubi getting a race win here, Tom Wolfgram now is in the hot seat to take that race win, as we still have drivers on aging hearts trying to get close, and drivers that are about to see their hearts expire now also have to battle the weather. This is going to be an intense ending to a very enduring Singapore Grand Prix, and for a 24-lap-old hearts, can they hold out in the rain?
Well, they're going to try and give it a go to see if they can hold those tyres out all the way in this rain to the end of the race. Of course, they're going to be very, very slippery. Those tyres are going to be really, really struggling come the end of this race session, but of course they are not at the end of it just yet. It's a few laps to go then, and it's going to be a real struggle to try and make it to the checkered flag, but they will give it their best shot. And Takubi, leading everyone onto it, will have to lead the charge. He will have tyres in pretty decent condition, just because of the fact that he's been able to stay ahead. As Tom 97, something's happened to the V-carb. He's had a spin down the middle of a straight, it appears. So maybe contact, and it's Axel into the side of him. So Tom 97 stranded all the way across the road. Axel into the side of him, and it's too late to call out a safety car, but that is a huge incident.
That is a massive incident indeed. So Axel and Tom 97 are now out of it. Tom was within points finishing position, and Nando Moreira now is within 9th. He's actually caught up with Franek Yazyorny. He's now behind Kasper Jadrzejczyk. We see that Josh Rothwell is starting to gain at least a couple of seconds on the drivers up ahead, but I think with just 2 laps to go, it will be too much for him to overcome, as he's 23 seconds down on pretty much everyone. Further up the field, Takubi's still leading the race, but he's got a 3-second time penalty. Behind him, it's the Ferrari of Tom Wolfgram. The man that we haven't seen throughout the entire session, perhaps, is now on race win course. He's ahead of stand-in driver Retmers in the Haas, and teammate Jonas Orpel finds himself in a provisional P3. Then it's Victor Garcia. Then behind is still Bennett Hayter, but he is now very close to the back of the Red Bull, putting it down the inside. A slight tap into the wall for the Red Bull, but Bennett Hayter finally side by side with the Red Bull. Needs to use a lot of energy. Almost contact with the Racing Bull of Ryan Jacobs. Side by side they go now into the right-hander. Just manages to stay ahead at least for now, but Ryan is starting to get alongside. Let's go on board with him. He is behind for now, but fighting is erupting here for P6, and the driver that we thought was going to go for a race win can now only hope that he outscores his championship competitor.
He can only hope, and Ryan Jacobs is going to try and stop that. Kasper Jedrzejczyk as well was really within range of Ryan Jacobs for that 7th place. So the opportunity might be rife for the Aston Martin to try and make his way through as well. Hayter with the DRS on Victor Garcia, and crucially, Garcia without the DRS on Jonas Orpel. So there might be one last twist in this race, as there's a huge send from the pole onto Nando Moreira, or Nando Moreira in fact trying to come back. Kasper Jedrzejczyk I think was defending the inside line from the Mercedes, but through goes Moreira, and Jedrzejczyk now struggling. I think he might have had an attempted send on Ryan Jacobs, but in the end found himself losing a position so poor from himself unfortunately there, as Jonas Orpel tries to close down on Redmers. This is going to be a dramatic final lap.
This is going to be a very dramatic final lap. We see that Bennett Hayter is now caught up with Garcia, who's just managed to get back within DRS window, but it looks like at least ahead of the field, positions are not going to change too much. Perhaps a switch between Redmers and Jonas Orpel, but it looks like ahead Takubi and Wolfgram are going to keep track position. But can Takubi get enough of a gap to still pick up some nice points here? Here Redmers goes. He will stay ahead, it looks like, of Jonas Orpel. So being the first across the line will be Takubi, but he's got a 3-second time penalty to his name. So where we thought the Kick Sauber was going to win it is glory for Ferrari. Tom Wolfgram wins the race ahead of Redmers. Then it's still Takubi who stays ahead of Jonas Orpel by just about a 10th, so it's still podium for Takubi. 4th place for Jonas Orpel. Bennett Hayter manages to stay ahead of Ryan Jacobs, your championship leader. And then Nando Moreira still coming home in 8th after a great recovery race. 9th place for Kasper Jedrzejczyk, and the final point going to Franek Yaziorny. But that was a frantic end to a race that I really wasn't expecting, Joseph.
No, it seemed to really light up right at the end of the competition, and that's exactly what we were hoping to see as we headed into this race session. Of course, we weren't expecting anything along those lines, but it was a very, very, very good race indeed right at the very end, and we will of course have our victors and everything along those lines. A dramatic change of a race late on with the tyres and everybody going out for the one stop, and that safety car at the start, I thought it was going to be ineffectual. I was wrong.
Yes, I think we were all wrong, because stopping early was the key way to go. Tom Wolfgram wins from 7th on the grid ahead of Redmers, who started in P14 but picks up a podium in his inaugural race for F3. Then it's Takubi, who led the race for a long duration but picked up the 3-second time penalties just when the rain was starting. Then it's Jonas Orpel ahead of Victor Garcia. Bennett Hayter finishes just in P6. Will gain a few points on Ryan Jacobs, but not as much as he was hoping for. Then Nando Moreira in P8 ahead of Kasper Jedrzejczyk, and a final point going to Franek Yaziorny. Behind him, outside the points, in Versizo in 11th. Then it's Formula Kai ahead of Simone Questra, Alessandro Finn, Josh Rothwell, and our retirees Axel after a huge incident with Tom 97, Demaiko, and Denis Kamensky were retired quite early on in the race. But wow there, Josh, that is not the race that we were anticipating, but an amazing win for Tom Wolfgram.
An amazing win for Tom Wolfgram indeed, and he ended up with that victory, as you say. Redmers with a strong 2nd place from 14th. Takubi, it was a weird one for him, because somehow he managed to go from the top to nowhere to the top once again.
Let's now find out if any of the drivers want to go for a quick interview, because that was quite the way to end it. Tom Wolfgram was on 13 points before this race, and now picking up a race win. He will be on 29 for Bennett Hayter. He finished now in P6. He's going to pick up 5 points. will still be 2 points ahead of Tom Wolfgram on 30. For Ryan Jacobs, he'll be picking up 4 points, so he'll be leading the champion. Well, he will still not officially be leading the championship because Rafael and Oliver are still ahead of him, but with them not scoring any points, I think it's safe to say that Ryan at some point in the next 3 races will score more than 5 points. So we'll see him as the championship leader. Yeah, so Bennett Hader still picking up some points, not as much as he wanted. Marazinoano wasn't there. Inversizo's not picking up any points at all. Takubi is picking up some nice points, 10 points to his name, so he'll be on 28, almost level with Bennett Hader, 2 points behind, but level with Tom Wolfgram. Fredrik Yaziorni's picking up a handful of points, but not too much. So that will mean, Joseph, that the championship fight will be a catch-up game to Ryan Jacobs, in the names of Bennett Hader, Takubi, and Tom Wolfgram.
It certainly will be, and I think that's just going to be it's just going to be about warding off the chasing pack towards the end of this championship, of course, which we are heading towards now. We've got only 3 races left to go in the season after this one, and Singapore has been called to a close. We're heading over to Europe and Takubi's home circuit for the last non-Asian round of the year next time out.
Yeah, I'm currently still seeing if we are getting any interviews. Tom Wolfgram has replied. We already heard from Takubi that he's not able to do an interview, but I think we might hear from our race winner in a moment's notice. As already mentioned, he will be within that chasing pack on Ryan Jacobs, and he will be 28 points down on the championship leader. So still quite a lot to overcome. But nothing impossible with 3 rounds to go, and if it continues the way that it did today, he will be able to get close enough to overtake him, if that of course would stay the same. But of course many things can happen. We thought it was a pretty straightforward race in Singapore for Bennett Hader, but nothing less was true because of that safety car and later on the rain. That also spiced things up a little bit further down behind them. So all in all, Joseph, I think we've seen quite an interesting race here.
Oh, certainly so. That was a very interesting race that lit up late on, I think it's fair to say. And, well, it's going to be very, very good to see these new competitors who are rising to the fore, competing throughout the rest of the season now, but with not too long to go. I think it's going to be frantic racing to finish off the campaign, and that's exactly what you'd like to see, as I believe Tom Wolfgram might be waiting for us.
He is indeed. So let's move on to our interview overlay, and then we'll hear from race winner Tom Wolfgram. So here we have him then, Tom Wolfgram. So far, his best placing result was a P4. Tonight, picking up 16 points, will be propelled into 29 points and effectively 3rd in the standings here in F4. Tom, congratulations on what must have been a crazy race win.
Thank you. It was a hard race, to be fair. I was never thinking that my tires are coming through. It worked perfectly out. I was praying only for the last lap on my tires. And of course, Tishubi with his 3-second time penalty served me P1. I don't know if he can remove it or not. I hope not, definitely, but I take it, of course. Crazy race tonight, and I'm really happy to get this.
I can imagine you must be very, very thrilled. But let's first go to the qualifying session. Qualifying, of course, plagued by quite a bit of rain as well. Towards the end, it seemed to be just dry enough to go for soft runs. But you were one of the 2 drivers that opted to go for inters.
Because my game said it was only a 2-second tire delta, and DRS wasn't enabled after I came through the last corners on my outlap. So I was tried inters, also because some drivers in front of me are slight, Billy Slippery in some corners. So I was thinking the inters is not bad, but I know that that is not enough for the pole, but I was surprised that it was enough for P7. Yeah.
Yeah, so all things considered, still picking up a nice place to start the race. Then, of course, we had that very early safety car. You went in for a pit stop with quite a few other drivers. Was it always a decision to go for a one-stop, or were you thinking we might go for a two-stop here?
It was definitely the one-stopper because you can't overtake here, and also you can save a lot of tires here. I drove, I don't know, what was it, 25 or 26 laps with the hards after the restart, so yeah.
Very good, very good. Well, moving over to you, Joseph, any questions that you have for our race winner?
Well, I mean, it was just an absolutely fantastic victory. Of course, it was very unlikely, but as you say, we were able to pull it off now. Of course, it's going to be the eternal question throughout the course of this season, I think, and well, with the way that we've had a few contenders out of it. Do you think that the title could still be on? Of course, it's not looking particularly on at the moment, but with only one driver out of the top 4 remaining in, it looks like it might be more of an open book than before.
I don't know yet because I can't practice that much because of my work times. Yeah, I can do some practice, but not that much, and maybe it's, yeah, I don't know. I hope that I can do something in the last 3 races, I guess. Next week Belgium, I wanna do the top 3 again because it's my favorite track. But yeah, it's time.
Yeah, of course, that's always the way, I think, with a lot of these championships. But thank you very much for joining us today, and well, good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you, and thank you for commentating.
You're welcome. Congratulations on an amazing race win.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So that seems to have rounded off our interviews for tonight as well, Joseph. I think we could already hear it in his voice, but Tom, he must be one lucky man.
Oh yeah, certainly so. It was a very, very good performance, yes, but sometimes you have to have luck to go your way, and luck did end up going his way, so he can be very, very happy with that one. And yeah, he will certainly feel as though it's going to be that little bit more spicy throughout the rest of the season, as it opens up a little bit. And of course, 3 of the quickest drivers in the tier have dipped out now, so it provides the opportunity for somebody like Tom to keep fighting at the top, maybe advertise himself for a promotion or a championship fight next time out.
Yeah, and the standings were a little bit on the screen for you as well. With that, Tom Wolfgram, if results stay as they are, will move up into P6, 29 points, 1 point down on Bennett Hader, but of course 3 drivers up ahead of him who have been promoted to the F3 tier. Quickly want to take a look at the calendar before we will be taking our lead. There we have it. So we've just had our race in Singapore. The next 3 weeks we'll be seeing action to conclude this season 42. Next week we'll be going to the legendary Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium in the, well, more or less northeast of Belgium, just ahead, well, just a little bit above the Ardennes Forest. Lovely area to be in if you've ever been there. Then we go for round 9 to Abu Dhabi, the Yas Marina Street Circuit, and then our season finale around the Jeddah Kearney Street Circuit in Saudi Arabia. But the way that things look now, 25-point lead, no, 24 points, sorry. What is it? 24-point lead in the championship indeed for Ryan Jacobs. If results stay as they are, it will be a hard one for the other drivers to overcome. It could be all glory to him next week in Belgium, or he will have to wait a little bit longer or see other drivers come just a little bit closer. Joseph, for you, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I can only imagine what seemed to be a bit of a procession here tonight turned out to be much more interesting than we were anticipating.
Oh yeah, it very much woke us up at the end of the race there. Of course, naturally towards the end of the race, the way that it ended up going, it was starting to wane attention a little bit, but it snapped us right back into it. And what a way to finish off that the race around Singapore.
Yeah, and with that, we will be taking our leave as well. Thank you so much for tuning in with us here at PSGL PCF4. Next week, it will be Belgium, as I said, where we'll see Tom Wolfgram as the only driver on the grid with a race win this season. Can you imagine? We will see you all again next week. Same time, same channel here at PSGL. Good night.